I guess you didn't have anybody to add this period. So what was this like for you? I guess helping on some other guys and stuff.
Yeah,
or-
helping on some other guys and still looking. I mean, if there's a great one out there somewhere, we're always interested. But yeah, getting ahead on some juniors and helping on the other guys. Some of those guys are from areas that I recruit, so just being involved with them and offering support. Trying to dig deep and.
Harson did mention tight ends a spot you guys still could add, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're certainly deep enough, but somebody else, with John being a senior, certainly wouldn't hurt.
Well, what is kind of the outlook for your group going into spring ball?
Well, we got John Bates, who I would fully expect to be one of the best tight ends in the country next year. I think he was probably in the conversation for that this year. But yeah, really excited to see what's in store for him. I think we're just scratching the surface, and happy he's back. He certainly had the ability to go leave early, but I think the right thing for him was to come back, and he's fully expecting to be a leader on our team this year, be a leader on our offense, and I'd like to see him continue to dominate blocking-wise and catch a few more balls.
That was something that was discussed. Him possibly looking to leave early, or
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I think he was always planning on coming back.
Okay.
But I think he's good enough that,
Yeah.
he's good enough to be in that conversation. I don't think it would have been the right move. But
Yeah.
I think, he's a guy that's committed to being the best he can be and helping Boise State be the best we can be.
How do you get? There was so much hype around some of those young guys, when they signed and stuff, and we really haven't seen much from either of them. Obviously, that'll probably have to change this year. What do you see from where those guys can kind of contribute and take the next step?
Well, I think the reason they didn't contribute wasn't because they're not on pace to, but Garrett Collingham's a guy that's probably going to have a chance to go play in the NFL, and Matt Pistone brought certain toughness and physicality to us and leadership. It's hard to get in front of those guys just because of the experience they had. But I fully expect Tyneil Hopper and Riley Smith to be guys that can do a lot for us and be a big help. I think Tyler Agurn's a guy that we'll probably see on the field at some point. Caden DeLuna's really improved. And then adding Russell and Austin into the crew in the summer, I think that gives us two different guys. Russell's a freaking blue-collar, tough guy, will hit you, can block. He's 240-some pounds with 9% body fat right now. So, he's going to be a big dude.
Yeah.
And then adding Austin, he gives us speed and athleticism. And I think both those guys, the thing I love most about them, they're both competitors. Austin, obviously, he's going to be one of the best basketball players in this area. But Russell's his career scoring leader at his high school in basketball, which if you around him, you probably wouldn't think this guy's a huge basketball guy. But, I think that gives us a lot of diversity in our group and guys that can do a lot of different things.
Is Austin, I know it hasn't even been here for a practice, but is he a guy that's going to maybe have a chance to come in and play right away? Or
I think all our freshmen will have a chance.
I guess they get 4 games now, so I guess.
What they do with that chance is up to them and how
Yeah.
fast they progress and how fast they learn, how fast they mature. But, I think every guy we signed in this class has a chance. And like you said, especially because of the 4-game thing, if they get an opportunity early on in practice to show that they're ready to play, they're going to get the opportunity in a game. And if they keep going, then they can continue to play. If it takes longer and it gets towards the end of the season, then hopefully throughout the course of the year, they show us something they can do, and we kind of keep rolling forward, and at some point they become usable.
You had some of those guys that had kind of defined roles, and you kind of spread them out with Pistone being the blocking guy, and Collingham did some of both, and then you mentioned obviously the pass catching ability of Bates. But how do you kind of keep trying to finding guys that can fill those kind of specialty roles, or how do you kind of?
Well, I think ideally everybody's a do everything guy, but
yeah.
That's ideally not reality. But one thing we have is John is a do everything guy. I mean, he's a dominating blocker and he's a threat in the pass game. He can run, he can catch. So I fully expect him to be a do everything guy. Now the other guys, how fast they progress and come along will determine whether they can do everything or kind of piece it together. But the one thing, we already have one guy that can do everything, gives you a little bit of flexibility to kind of work another guy into that. And I think we have a couple of those guys are guys that can do that.
As an offensive coach, you look at the offense as a whole going into the spring, and next year you bring a lot of the skill players back, but obviously up front there's a lot of questions there. How do you guys as a staff kind of look at the potential for this offense and maybe kind of what you hope to accomplish in the spring?
Sure. Well, we definitely want to get some develop depth, develop a reliable first unit, and then develop depth behind that. Like you said, we have a bunch of guys that have experience kind of on the perimeter, and we have more guys up front that got experience than you think. I know not everybody notices who's in on the offensive line. It's just the offensive line, but Jake Stetz, Kikani Gonzalez, Garrett Curran, those guys all got significant playing time last year. So I would expect, and then even within practice, you got other guys like Ben Dooley and Nick Crabtree that just get a ton of reps because some of the other guys were so beat up that those guys improved over the course of the year. So now it's a matter of fitting them together and getting some cohesiveness in there, and having a guy like John Bates take some leadership of that group, and John Ojukwu take some leadership of that group, and like, hey guys, here we got to get this done, and so coming out of spring, just feeling good about that first unit, and then knowing that we've got some depth behind it.
And I guess final thing, you mentioned Riley Smith. I mean, you could only have 2 scholarship quarterbacks for spring ball. I mean, is he full tight end now, and what is kind of his potential?
Yeah, he's full tight end.
Okay.
So he's 100% in. He's ready to do it. Now, if he has to go back there and hand the ball off a couple plays or something, that's not going to hurt him. He knows how to do that stuff. But yeah, no, we're developing as a tight end, and I think he's got unlimited potential. I think he's a guy that can follow in the footsteps of John Bates down the road.